Beloved, if you ever want to glimpse the soul of a person, watch how they treat the ones who hold no power over them. Not the boss, not the influencer, not the one with money, beauty, or a spotlight, but the janitor, the server, the cashier who made a mistake, the child who's still learning boundaries, the stranger who needs help but has nothing to offer in return. That's where truth lives. In the quiet corners, in the unrecorded moments when kindness would cost them nothing and yet means everything. We live in a world that often rewards performance over presence, charisma over character, and influence over integrity. But true character is rarely revealed in grand gestures. It's exposed in the split-second decisions when no applause is expected. It's in how someone responds to a crying baby on a plane, or whether they hold the door for the person 3 steps behind. It's in whether they learn someone's name, even when that person is wearing a name tag. These are the places where masks slip, and what's behind the curtain matters. One of the most defining tests of someone's integrity is how they behave when there is no transaction on the table. Nothing to gain, nothing to lose, just a moment with another human soul. You want to know who someone really is? Watch how they speak to the elderly. Watch if they roll their eyes at someone who's slower or different. Watch if they interrupt people they think are beneath them. That's where the evidence shows up. Not in what they post, but in who they are when no one's documenting. I've watched people raise their voice at a waitress like it proves something. I've seen leaders walk past the cleaning staff without eye contact as if they were invisible. And I've also seen people who carry genuine humility, the kind that makes space for others, that pauses and sees dignity in everyone. That kind of person isn't trying to be good, they are good. And it flows from a deep well of awareness and empathy. Sometimes the powerless aren't obvious. They're not always the ones struggling financially or socially. Sometimes it's the quiet coworker, the exhausted parent, the person who's one bad day away from a breakdown. And in those moments, the small acts, eye contact, a soft word, a patient pause, becomes sacred. You're not just being kind, you're telling someone you matter. Even when you're unseen by others, I see you. The truth is, anyone can be impressive when they're on a stage. Anyone can be generous when there's praise attached. But the rare soul, the one who's real, who's rooted, who's safe to love and trust, they give kindness even when there's nothing in it for them. And not because they want to be admired, but because they know what it's like to be on the receiving end of indifference. And they made a decision: I will not be a source of harm in this world, even in small ways. We don't need more people who climb ladders and forget the ones holding them steady. We need people who carry gentleness like a language, who protect the dignity of every soul they pass. Not because they're perfect, but because they remember we are all connected and nobody's worth is tied to their usefulness. So, beloved, pay attention, not to the spotlight, but to the shadows, not to the words, but to the choices. How someone treats the powerless tells you everything you need to know about their power, and whether it's something to trust or something to run from. There's a moment in every relationship, every friendship, every leadership role where the ease fades and the discomfort creeps in. It's the moment when things aren't going smoothly, when someone's late or plans change or emotions run high. In those moments, not the polished ones, but the raw, messy, inconvenient ones, a person's true wiring is revealed. Discomfort is the great revealer. It strips away performance and brings out what's most deeply embedded: fear or courage, control or compassion. Some people crave control so deeply that any sense of unpredictability threatens their peace. And when discomfort arrives, they don't lean in, they lash out. They micromanage, criticize, shut down, or shame. Not because they're evil, but because they've never learned to sit with discomfort without reacting to it. The problem is, if you're walking through life with someone who can't tolerate discomfort, you'll end up absorbing the brunt of their reaction. And that reaction has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with their unhealed places. Discomfort shows up in so many ways. conflict, silence, grief, confusion, transition. It's in the hard conversations, the unexpected detours, the moments when vulnerability is required and control isn't available. So watch how someone handles those moments. Do they shut down emotionally when you cry? Do they get passive aggressive when you ask for clarity? Do they need everything to be wrapped up in a bow before they can engage honestly? There is a difference between someone who feels discomfort and someone who makes others pay for it. The former learns how to breathe through it. The latter turns it into blame, sarcasm, withdrawal, or control. And here's the hard truth. People who are unsafe in discomfort are often unsafe in love too. Because love, real, meaningful love, is messy. It's full of awkward timing and unmet expectations and emotional weather. And it requires the ability to stay present, even when it's hard. We often underestimate the emotional maturity required to simply to stay in the room when a friend is grieving, to stay soft when the conversation gets tense, to stay curious instead of defensive. That kind of maturity doesn't come from books or titles. It comes from doing the work inside yourself. It comes from being willing to say, this is hard and I'm still here. The ones who do that, they are a rare kind of safe. One of the most beautiful things to witness is someone who doesn't need to fix the discomfort. They just honor it. They let silence breathe. They let tears fall. They let confusion hang in the air without rushing to clean it up. That kind of presence is holy. It tells the people around them, you don't have to shrink or perform here. I can handle the mess because I've done the work to handle my own. But someone who hasn't faced their own discomfort will almost always project it onto others. They'll make you the problem, the trigger, the one who's too much or too sensitive, not because you are, but because they haven't learned how to be with what's real. And if you're not careful, you'll start shrinking to protect their comfort. That's not love, that's emotional outsourcing. So, beloved, pay attention. When things get hard, do they lean in or check out? Do they blame or do they breathe? Do they choose presence or do they run for the exit, emotionally or physically? Because how someone handles discomfort is how they will handle you when you become difficult to understand or love. And that day will come. Choose those who stay soft when life gets hard. There's a sacred kind of strength in the words, I was wrong. Not everyone can say them, not because they don't make mistakes, we all do, but because saying them out loud requires a heart that's done some serious growing. Owning a mistake doesn't make a person weak, it makes them trustworthy because it shows they value truth over image, repair over ego, relationship over pride. If you want to know someone's depth of character, don't just listen to what they say when things go right. Watch what they do when they get it wrong. It's easy to apologize for small things, bumping into someone, forgetting a meeting, but the real test is in the harder moments, when they've hurt you with their words, when they've made a decision that caused damage, when they've acted out of fear, insecurity, or anger. In those moments, do they rush to justify? Do they twist the story to protect themselves? Do they get defensive or silent or sarcastic? Or do they do the brave thing and say, that was me, I'm sorry, I didn't handle that well? The truth is, deflection is a defense mechanism. It's a way of shielding a fragile ego from shame. But people who are whole, not perfect, but whole, understand that mistakes don't define them. They know they can be wrong and still be worthy. That's the difference. Accountability isn't about perfection, it's about maturity. It's about saying, I hurt you and I care more about your heart than about being right. Some people would rather lose connection than admit fault. That's heartbreaking. And it's often because somewhere along the line they were taught that being wrong is dangerous. Maybe they were punished for imperfection. Maybe they were raised in a home where saying sorry was seen as weakness. So now, as adults, they treat every mistake like a threat to their identity. But here's the thing. If they won't own their mistakes, they'll make you carry the weight of them every single time. You'll find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, walking on eggshells. trying to smooth over tension they created but won't acknowledge. That's not accountability. That's emotional outsourcing. It's toxic and it's exhausting. And over time, it chips away at your own sense of clarity and confidence. That's why it's so important to notice this early. When they mess up, do they clean it up or do they expect you to? There is something profoundly safe about a person who can say, I missed that, or I see how that landed and I'm sorry. No excuses, no justifications, just a real moment of truth. Those people, they are gold. Because when someone owns their mistakes, they give you permission to be human too. They create an environment where repair is possible, where growth is shared, where relationships don't have to be perfect to be real. We all get it wrong. We all lose our temper, speak too quickly, act from fear. The difference between harm and healing is not whether a mistake happened, it's what happens next. Accountability is the bridge between rupture and repair. Without it, trust erodes. With it, trust deepens. It's that simple. And that hard. So, beloved, watch closely. When things go wrong, do they look inward or point fingers outward? Do they show up or shut down? Because how someone handles being wrong tells you everything about how they'll love you when you're struggling, not as an idea, but as a real, imperfect human being. Choose those who choose responsibility over self-preservation. That's where love lives. There's a quiet kind of integrity that shows itself, not when someone is being watched, but when they're not. When the cameras are off, when the spotlight is elsewhere, and especially when the person they're talking about isn't in the room. That's the moment. That's where you listen. Because how someone speaks about others when they're absent is a mirror, not of the person they're discussing, but of their own heart. We've all been in those conversations. You know the ones where someone lowers their voice just a bit, leans in, and begins their sentence with, "Don't tell anyone but," or "I probably shouldn't say this but." And just like that, trust erodes. It doesn't matter how charming they are, how generous they seem, or how nice they are to your face. If they're tearing someone else down behind their back, you can count on one thing. Eventually, you'll be the topic. There's a dangerous illusion that gossip is harmless, even entertaining, but it's not. It's often cruelty in disguise, a way to feel powerful, in the know, or superior without having to say it outright. And more than that, it creates invisible wounds in community. It makes connection feel unsafe. It breeds suspicion, and it silently teaches people that love is conditional, that loyalty only lasts as long as someone is present. But there is another way. There are people who hold conversations like sacred ground. People who protect the dignity of others, even when those others are flawed, especially then. They don't pretend others are perfect, but they refuse to weaponize someone's absence. They say things like, "She's not here to speak for herself, so let's not go there," or "Let's give him the benefit of the doubt." That kind of presence, that's what safety feels like. You see, it's easy to be kind when it benefits you. It's easy to speak well of people you admire or agree with, but true character is tested when someone has disappointed you, frustrated you, or failed to meet your expectations. What do you say then? Do you degrade them to protect your own image? Do you mock their choices for a cheap laugh? Or do you pause, breathe, and honor their humanity, even in their imperfection? One of the most telling behaviors I've ever witnessed is how someone defends or disrespects others when there's no social gain in doing so. People who speak with compassion when no one is watching, those are the ones you trust. Because if they cover others in grace, they'll cover you too. If they speak truth with gentleness, even when it's hard, they're showing you who they really are, someone who values people more than performance. And it works both ways. How we speak about others teaches people how we'll treat them when they're vulnerable, when they fail, when they're not around to defend themselves. It shows whether we can be trusted with someone's story or whether we'll sell it for the currency of attention. Every time we speak, we either protect or exploit. There's rarely a middle ground. So, beloved, lean in, pay attention. Watch the way someone tells stories. Are they gentle or sharp? Are they honoring or sensational? The ones who use their words to build, to shield, to protect, those are the ones who've done the deep inner work. They understand that integrity isn't about who's looking, it's about who you are when no one is. And if someone speaks with kindness in the shadows, you can trust their light is real. If you really want to know what kind of love someone carries, don't look at how they treat you when you're easy to love. Look at how they respond when you disappoint them, when you fail to meet their expectations, when you're not performing, not pleasing, not making them proud. Conditional love is easy. It gives when it's convenient, when it's tidy, when it feels good. But real love, deep love, it's revealed when it costs something. We've all felt the ache of love that was more like a transaction than a commitment. The kind that said, I'm here for you, but disappeared the moment we struggled, spoke up, or showed our mess. That kind of love is rooted in fear, a fear of discomfort, a fear of vulnerability, a fear of anything that asks more than it offers. But the people who love without condition, they stay when things get complicated. They hold space for your growth, not just your goodness. Unconditional love doesn't mean enabling harm or tolerating disrespect. Let's be clear. It means choosing presence over punishment. It means saying, I see you even here, even now, and I'm not going anywhere. It means holding boundaries with compassion and believing that someone's worth isn't canceled by their worst day. This kind of love doesn't shout, it whispers. You're still safe with me. It takes a special kind of emotional maturity to love someone in the middle of their unraveling, when they're not showing up well, when they're caught in their shame, when they're distant, defensive, or drowning in something they don't have words for yet. Unconditional love says, I won't pretend this doesn't hurt, but I'm still here. I'm not using your struggle as an excuse to withdraw mine. That's the love that heals. You want to know if someone's love is real? Watch what they do when your mess shows up, when you're insecure, angry, or afraid. Do they lean in or do they pull away? Do they shame you, fix you, silence you, or do they sit beside you in the dark without needing to clean it all up? The ones who can do that, they are gold because they know that love isn't earned, it's given. And it's given most meaningfully when nothing is being received in return. There is a grace that lives in people who've had to fight for their own healing. People who've learned to offer themselves compassion even when they didn't have it modeled for them. Those people love differently. They don't flinch when your pain surfaces. They don't run when it gets hard. They've been through the fire, and instead of hardening, they've softened. They've chosen to love anyway. And it's the most powerful kind of love there is. What sets this kind of love apart is not that it never hurts, but that it never shames. It doesn't weaponize your vulnerability. It doesn't keep score. It doesn't make love a reward to be earned. It says, I'm not here for a version of you. I'm here for you. It holds steady when everything else shakes, and it leaves room for the other person to grow, evolve, and return, even after they've lost their way. So, beloved, pay attention. When things get inconvenient, uncomfortable, or uncertain, does their love shrink or does it stretch? Do they extend grace or do they retreat into silence or resentment? Because love is not just what's spoken in vows or poems, it's what shows up in the ordinary, messy, unscripted moments of life. Real love doesn't close the door. Real love leaves the light on